Hello, this is Noodle Soup, and welcome to the 5th video in this tutorial series. So for recap, we were able to get pretty much the movement down and the enemies down, as well as the shooting. And now before we start making the sounds, we need to do one thing. I forgot in the last video to make the animation play for the shooting, because he doesn't actually shoot. So let's do that real quick. So in the event of your tank shooting, you need to play the animation of the shooting. So to set an object to a sprite, you would just go to the object, go to the event, and then you type in sprite index is equal to whatever sprite, the sprite name. And in this case, the sprite name is SPR tank shoot. And now when you press play, we can shoot. But now the issue arises that whenever you press shoot, it actually stays on the shooting animation and doesn't go back to the idle. So what if outside the shooting event, we just set the sprite to the idle animation? We see that for one frame, it actually does play the animation, but then it immediately goes back to the idle animation. So how do we solve this? Well, in pseudocode, let's think about it this way. What's our problem? The problem is that when you shoot, we set the sprite to the shoot sprite. But what happens next? It immediately gets set to the idle. So what needs to happen? What needs to happen is that if we write this in pseudocode, if the shooting sprite is finished, then we set the current sprite to the original one. So let's put that into practice. Let's get rid of the sprite index here because we don't want this to constantly run. And now we could write our conditional. If the sprite is finished, then we play the current sprite, or we set the sprite to the sprite. So what can we put inside this conditional? Well, GameMaker has a built-in function for each object called image index. An image index basically returns the frame that the sprite is currently on. So if we look at the frame, this would be image index 0. The reason why it's 0 is because it starts at 0. Everything starts at 0. And this one will be number 1. If you look at the tank shooting, this would be 0, 1, and 2. With that in mind, we can use another built-in GameMaker function called image number. And image number basically returns the amount of frames that a certain sprite has. In this case, the image number will return 2 because there are 2 frames. So basically, we would say if the current image or the current frame is greater or equal to than the image number, then we would set the sprite to this one. And then also we need to also make sure and this current sprite is also equal to the tank shooting. So basically, if the current sprite is the shooting sprite and the sprite finishes its animation, then we will change the sprite to the tank. And we notice it doesn't work. And the reason why that is because we need to subtract this by 1. And as an editor's note, the reason why we need to do this is because the way image index differs from image number. The image index will look at all the frames of the sprite from 0 to the end, while image number returns you the amount of frames there are. So as shown here, there's clearly a difference between what image index returns versus what image number returns. Because of this difference, we need to subtract image number by 1. Because if we don't, image index will never ever be able to reach image number because it's always one behind. Oh, SPR tank shooting. And now when we play, it should work. Okay, there's also another issue. So the reason why sometimes it plays the animation and sometimes it finishes quickly is because, in simple terms, when you switch between sprites, the frame that's currently on stays the same. So if you're on a sprite with 3 frames and you're on frame 2 right now, and you switch to a sprite that only has 2 frames, it'll already be at the end of the animation. So what we need to do is reset the current frame back to 0. We're going to go back to our shooting event and we're going to say image index is equal to 0, which is basically saying we're going to set the current frame to 0. Now, whenever we shoot, it's always consistent and it works pretty good. Okay, now we can add sounds. Right click on sounds, create a sound. And then you could just import your files through here and it'll load. I'm just going to import sounds from my previous game and just add it to here. Now I currently have two sounds, the shooting sound effect and the enemy hitting sound effect. So now let's put these into the game. What we want to do is we want to play the sound when the bullet comes out, which is basically in this event. In GameMaker, you would say audio, play, sound, and then it'll take in 3 arguments. It'll take the sound, the priority, and if it loops. So I'm gonna play the shooting sound effect, and the priority, I really don't know what this does. You could just put 1, I always do, and do not loop. So we'll set the looping to false. It's actually really loud, so I gotta lower it. Now the next step is to make the enemies make a sound when they die. So we're just gonna go to our enemy, and when it gets destroyed, or the event that it gets destroyed in, which is the place-beating bullet, we are gonna play the audio of the enemy dying. The sound we're gonna play is the enemy sound, enemy hits, and priority we'll just put a 1 as always, and do not loop. And that's pretty much it. That's basically what sounds are. You could do a lot more stuff, like we have audio play, and you can see all these functions. You could play sound, you could play sound at, I don't know how this works, but for the most part you only need audio play sound. You could stop a sound, so audio stop a certain sound, and then you can put in the name of the sound, and then it'll stop it. You can set the audio's gain, audio sound gain of a certain sound, and then set it to a certain gain. You can do many things with these audios, all of which you could probably just easily look up on documentation. Yeah, it's just easy to find on the documentation. And the last thing we're going to do is probably add some music. So to add some music, what we need to do is to have the music play while you're playing forever until eventually you die or something. So we pretty much need the audio to loop. And to have the audio loop, we can have the O manager play. So in the manager, we're just going to say audio, play, sound, and let me add my sound real quick. Now that I added a song, I'm gonna say the name of the song, which is Tank Tondrum 1, and loops, you can say true. And now when the song plays, it breaks. And the reason why that is because we're in the step event, which means this song is playing forever and ever. So we kind of needed to play once, which is why we have the create event, so that it plays once forever. Okay, that's pretty much a beginner's guide of what sounds are in GameMaker and how to play them. In the next video, we are going to create a gameplay loop, which means that we're going to be able to lose and restart the game again so that we can play over and over again. And we will also add a score counter so that it's more engaging, I suppose. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys for watching.